Hello and welcome to the UK Asian. My name is VG Alice. We're here at Christie's Auction House in London with Deepanjana Klien, the Head of Department for Modern and Contemporary South Asian Art at Christie's, London and New York. Deepanjana, thank you so much for joining us. A major show coming up in a couple of days' time, 11th of June in London. Tell us a little bit about where the art is from and specifically who the artists are.
Well, thank you for having me. And basically what we do is represent South Asian art, which involves India, Pakistan, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. So we try and represent all of them in every season. It's an emerging market, and in an emerging market basically you find modernists where we have a selection from anywhere between £8,000, £10,000 to £1 million. Whereas in the contemporary section, we have anything between, again, same price range. So we want collectors to come from everywhere. And we have collectors in India, we have collectors from Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, America, and Europe.
And what are the kind of signature names that are on display? Tell us a little bit about that. For instance, this piece, who's this from? And a little bit about the provenance of this piece.
Well, it is Francis Newton Souza, an artist, of course, who belongs to London. He moved to London in 1949 and lived here till 1967. And this is one of his greatest works from 1957. It's titled Man and Woman Grinding Their Teeth, quite obvious. And it is one of the most monumental works of art from this artist oeuvre that we are handling.
And it was created in London?
It was created in London since he moves to New York after that in 1967. It comes from a provenance, an excellent provenance of Harold Hovner, who was a businessman from New York who supported Souza throughout his career in London and New York. He used to own hospitals, so he got the pick of the best Souzas that were being offered by Gallery One in the 50s.
And we've also got, obviously, M.F. Hussain, we've got George Keith from Sri Lanka as well. Who are the other ones, for instance, from Pakistan?
So Pakistan, we have Gulji, who's a modernist. We have Ahmed Parvez. And from the younger generation, we have three excellent artists, actually four artists. Rashid Rana, Imran Qureshi, Aisha Khalid, and Muhammad Ali Tabur. And all of them pretty much need no introduction, since they're pretty much being shown at various museums right now as we speak. From the contemporaries, we have Subodh Gupta, Parthikar, Jitish Kalat. From Sri Lanka, as you said, we have George Keith. And of course, then we have the Indian major artists from the modernist section would be Souza. We have Syed Haidar Raza. We have Tayyab Mehta, and we have M.F. Hussain.
I know Christie's has had an office in India since 1994, I believe, 20 years now. But Indian art or South Asian art has really picked up over the last half decade or decade or so. Is that an accurate observation to make? I mean, what do you kind of attribute that to? Why is there such an interest in South Asian, contemporary and modern art?
Well, there's no straightforward, easy answer. However, once we started our auctions, there were also galleries that were building up their stable of artists in India. There were galleries opening up in New York. There were galleries opening up in London. A lot of Europeans were taking interest. Museums started picking up Indian artists. And slowly, that curatorial platform that was created came into the secondary market, which is the auction house. And we brought in works which are not easily available in the primary market. So all collectors that were otherwise collecting, which we weren't aware of, the market wasn't aware of, they were collecting from various galleries, started coming to auction houses, and that's the only place where you actually see prices that are publicly announced. So we started creating benchmark for these artists, And this was pretty much supported by all private collectors, first in America, who were expats who made it big in New York, in the Bay Area, then in London. And a lot of Europeans started collecting contemporary arts because they could relate to them. So it took years, but a very short time if you see. I mean, it was not very long ago where we first sold a Tayyab Mehta for 100,000. He was the same artist we sold for $1 million for the first time. And
When was that?
This was in 2006 or 7. Was a Tayyab Mehta. That was the first time we sold for $1 million. And then December, we go into our maiden sale in 2013, and we sold a Gaitunde for 3.8 million. That's the highest record for the artist, for any artist in our category, and that's the highest price that anyone has paid for modern and contemporary work in India.
Is that ceiling in danger, do you think, at this particular sale? That 3.8 million ceiling?
Well, we would like it to be. This one has that potential, but we'll see.
One of the things, as I was kind of listening to your presentation from earlier on as well, a lot of the artists have been, you spoke about how they were inspired by minimalism, modern European sensibilities, etc., etc. Not many draw on their country of origin. Is that an accurate observation to make?
It depends, because we're talking about the modernists who started working around pre-independence and just post-independence. And as India gains independence, there is a lot of confusion. So Souza starts the Progressive Artists Group, where they want to break away from Indianness. They're trying to find their own identity. They don't want to copy the British, so they don't want to do the academic style. So there's a lot of friction and speculation between the artists that what should they do to show that they are, on the one hand, Indian, and yet they are universal. And so that's one group. And then there was, on the other hand, Swaminathan. Jagdish Swaminathan, who's also represented in our sale. He started a group that went back into Indianness, started taking painting in the form of miniatures. So they're flat application of colors, the perspective is very different. The colors that you see are very red, yellows that you see in miniature paintings, flatly applied. So, this is a period where artists are trying to find themselves. It's a new India. It's a very young India. So even 1957, we're still very young as a country. And Souza is already here. Tayyab came to England as well in the 60s and moved to America for Rockefeller Grant. Raza moved in 1950 to France. Only went back to India a few years ago. So you can see they were like sponges, absorbing everything around them. And today what we see is what these artists worked themselves through to find themselves. And when you see the contemporary works, there is no doubt that across the world they could stand anywhere and they could be artists from anywhere. So the geographical boundaries are gone because they didn't have that baggage that the modernists had.
And what about over the last, say, 10, 20 years? Where do you think artists, modern artists, are going to draw on for their paintings, which will be selling for £1.5 million in 40 years' time?
Did you mean the contemporary
artists? The contemporary artists today, or in the last 2 decades, where's their inspiration going to come from for them to be selling at Christie's in London in 40 years' time?
So let's say the contemporary artists are younger artists who we are saying they are in their 30s, in their 40s now. Technology has done something amazing for them, which again, our modernists didn't have access to. The world has become so small, it's shrunk. So what you see today is they are at every art fair. They'll be at Basel, which is next week. They'll be at the Venice Biennale. So they are drawing inspiration from everywhere. And yet, there's something Indianness in them. For example, if you see the works of Subodh Gupta, the whole preoccupation of his works is about migrants. The migrant workers who pack all these baggages. They live in Dubai in terrible condition, and then they come back home with all gifts. And when you see his cart and a big bundle, that is him. So even though the execution and the look is very Western, that it's an artist who could be from anywhere, but when you see his piece and actually go a few layers down, it is a very Indian piece. It's the psychology of sending something back home.
And having lived in Dubai, I can completely kind of visualize what you're actually talking about. And finally, tell us, I'm sure you've been asked this many, many times, the correlation between India as an emerging economic global superpower and, the success enjoyed by its artists. And also, I mean, how much or what percentage of your buyers are originating from India?
Well, emerging market is an interesting thing because it attracts a lot of people. The good news is, for us, it's mostly private collectors. These works are collected by private collectors. They go into museums and they go into private homes and hopefully not to come out for, let's say, 20, 30 years. A lot of them are from India. A lot of our collectors are from America, as I said, from New York, and the East Coast, and the Bay Area from the West Coast. We have a lot of collectors based in London. And from the younger group of collectors, there's a lot coming from Europe and rest of Asia. We have a lot of collectors coming from Singapore, from Malaysia. We're seeing more and more activity there as well.
Deepanjana Klien, Head of Department for Modern and South Asian Contemporary Art. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.